Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 118. Okay, so I visit with my daughter and my grandson Davy probably twice a week at least. I'm really lucky because we live just about 20 minutes apart. And Davy and I have certainly bonded. You know, we go swimming together, we play blocks, I babysit. He's just about taken over my iPad. But needless to say, I can't even put into words how much I love that little guy. Well, as it turns out, he can't put it into words either. or at least he hasn't said the word grandma yet. Now, Davy's about, 21 months old, I think. His birthday's in December. So he's starting to say some words, and I've been just kind of working my tail off trying to get him to say grandma. I've definitely been giving it the old college try. I say grandma, and I point to myself, and I do pretty much everything but stand on my head to hear the word come out of his mouth. Well, my husband, Bill, who we refer to as Bumpa to Davy because that's the name that they use for grandfathers in the Cooke clan. Well, he doesn't get to see Davy near as often as I do. But boy, does Davy think that Bill is pretty much Superman and Indiana Jones all rolled into one. And sure enough, the other day, I spent the afternoon babysitting Davy, and he still hadn't said grandma. Not that I hadn't been trying. His few words have been cracker. He says quacka, quacka, cuckoo, because he loves cuckoo clocks. My other daughters, they were trying to get him to say cuckoo for grandma. I put a stop to that. But he loves cuckoo. He says daddy. He says clues. He wants Blue's Clues on Netflix. Well, that day that I was babysitting, around dinner time, Bill came over to the house to have dinner with us and visit, and he knocks on the door, and Davy and I open the door, and Davy exclaims, Bumpa! Not grandma, Bumpa! And Bill was just beside himself, thrilled as he should be. So I may have to wait for my grandma, but let me tell you, it's going to be worth the wait. I try to console myself with the fact that I'm pretty sure the stronger consonants like B and P, like in Bumpa, are easier for the little ones to say. Bill says that I should have him call me Nana, the name they used for the grandmothers in the Cooke family, because the N sound might be easier for him to say. But I am determined to wait for grandma. We get pretty attached to our terms of endearments for grandparents, don't we? You know, I've waited my whole life to be a grandmother like my grandma was, so I guess I could be patient a little longer to hear it from Davy. It'll be worth it. But I discovered something that I didn't know this last week about a grandparent's name in our family. This last weekend, we went up to Washington State to attend my high school reunion on Saturday night. No, I don't have to tell you how many years. Too many. But it was on Saturday night, and Friday night, we met up with all of Bill's family to celebrate his mother's 85th birthday. Just happened to be the same weekend. It was great. So we had our own little mini family reunion, kind of took over one of the local restaurants, which was terrific because we hadn't been up north for about 5 years. Anyway, so as I was sitting and chatting with Bill's mom, who has always been known as Pat, I heard for the first time how she ended up with that name rather than Nana, which is kind of the usual Cooke grandmother name, or just grandma. Well, it turns out that Bill's nephew, who was her first grandchild, called her Pat one day because her name is Pat, and he had heard somebody call her by that name, and he just found that easier to say than grandma. There's that P sound again. So everyone started using it, and she confided to me that she's always sort of wished that she had been a Nana, like her mom and her grandmother. And I had no idea. I always thought she liked being called Pat. So what I'm thinking of is I'm going to take a picture of Davy, and I'm going to write, "Hi, great Nana," from Davy. And I'm going to send that to her for Christmas, I think. I think that would make her day. It's funny how things like names evolve, isn't it? Well, there are probably a lot of different names out there, those of you listening, for grandmother and grandfather in your family. I'd love to hear from you. If you have some interesting ones in your clan, drop me a line or leave a voicemail, 925-272-4021. We'll share them here on the show. That would be kind of fun. Now, in the genealogy news, there's been a lot going on, and there are a few gems that I want to share with you. First off, FamilySearch has just announced they've added, once again, millions of new records of both Confederate and Union soldiers who served in the American Civil War. Also now available for viewing are newly added notarial records from Canada, church records and civil registrations from Mexico, and miscellaneous records from England. So you can check those out at familysearch.org. And in the UK, there's some exciting news. The UK National Archives just announced that findmypast.co.uk has just released 1 million merchant Navy seaman records, dating from 1918 to 1941. The records cover a significant era in nautical history when ocean travel was at its peak. The Merchant Navy covered all cargo and passenger ships and their crews. So if your ancestor went to sea and you've previously not found them in Royal Navy records, this may be where they're hiding. Could be. The records are now available online. They contain some rarely seen photos of the mariners along with descriptions, including their eye and hair color, their height, and distinguishing marks. So I'll have a link in the show notes to that. And also, keep an eye out for some very useful guides at the UK National Archives website to help you with your research into merchant seamen. You can go to the nationalarchives.gov.uk, click Records, and then click Looking for a Person, and look for the column down there that says Merchant Seaman. And finally, if you want to read more about them, there is a paperback book called My Ancestor Was a Merchant Seaman. It's available from the National Archives UK website. And speaking of the UK, over 500,000 records of apprentices have been added to the ancestry.co.uk site. They cover Scotland, England, and Wales during the years 1710 to 1811. The National Archives extracted the records of stamp duty paid on indentures, but they don't include apprentices whose positions were found by the parish or by charities because, of course, no stamp duty was due on those types of indentures. They also don't cover apprentices of London companies or an apprentice who perhaps was informally apprenticed to a relative, let's say. But you will find those at the nationalarchives.gov.uk. Click Records. You're going to look for Research Guides, Apprenticeship Records. And to learn more about apprenticeship records, I'll have a link in the show notes to the TNA Research Guide to Apprenticeship Records, which is also over at the National Archives website. And I've got some news for those of you researching Australian ancestors who served in World War I. You can now access the records of Australian soldiers who fought in the Great War free at the National Archives of Australia website. That's at naa.gov.au. And if your relative was an Australian soldier, the Office of Australian War Graves at the Australian Government Department of Veteran Affairs website, they offer free photographs of Australian soldiers' graves. You'll find them at dva.gov.au. And I'll have the longer, more specific URL addresses in the show notes for you. And here's something that everyone can benefit from. Our wonderful sponsor, RootsMagic, is offering 2 new webinars absolutely free. They're coming up quick. The first webinar is called What's New in Personal Historian 2? So here's the scoop. Personal Historian 2, it's the latest version of the software to organize, write, and publish personal histories for yourself and other people in your family. It takes this seemingly monumental task and it breaks it into small, manageable pieces, and then it reconstructs it into a complete, publishable document. The included library of timelines and memory triggers give color and context to your writing. You can even add documents, journals, photographs, and genealogy to give it a personal touch. The 90-minute webinar is going to be held on Wednesday, September 28th, 2011 at 6 p.m. Mountain. So be sure and check that against your own time zone. And the other webinar that they're going to be doing is called Creating a Shareable CD with RootsMagic. Now, one of the things that we talk about here on the show is how to share your hard work and your research with other family members. And of course, the million-dollar question is, how do you get those family members involved? That's what RootsMagic's Shareable CD features is all about, and it really is a gem. In the webinar that's coming up, you're going to learn how to make a CD or a DVD that contains all of your data, pictures, and even its own copy of RootsMagic that will not only show everyone what you've discovered, but excite them as well, which is great. If you're a RootsMagic user and you're not taking advantage of this super cool feature, you got to sit in on this live webinar. Jot it down on your calendar. It's Tuesday, October 4th, 2011. It's at 5 p.m. Central Time, and it will run about 60 minutes. But don't worry, if the live webinar doesn't fit your schedule, they're going to be posting a recording of the class on their website at rootsmagic.com/webinar. You'll find tons of them there, and you can watch it at your convenience. And it's absolutely free. And it stays free. It doesn't disappear after a month. I love that about RootsMagic webinars. So be sure and bookmark that and get those on your calendar. Again, that's Tuesday, October 4th for Creating a Shareable CD with RootsMagic. And finally, if you have some time in your schedule and you want to sit in on one of my classes, I would love it. And here's where I will be in the upcoming months. Let's see here. First off, September 25th, I will be speaking at the Sacramento Public Library. And then October 7th and 8th, of course, October is Family History Month, so it's going to be a busy time. On the 7th and the 8th, I'll be out in San Mateo on the peninsula here in the San Francisco Bay Area for the Northern California Family History Expo. I love that. It's going to be a new venue for them, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And then, let's see, October 21st, Waterloo, Iowa Public Library. I'm doing a webinar for them. So that's something that you can get in touch with the Waterloo, Iowa Public Library. You can kind of get together with the whole group, and then I'll be coming in on the webinar. And I'm doing a webinar the next day, October 22nd, for the Hayden, Idaho Family History Center, their Fall Family History Seminar. And then October 29th, a full-day seminar for the Victoria, British Columbia, Canada Genealogical Society. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a Google day. We are going to be Googling from morning till night. It's going to be fun. And then, yes, I have finally committed to the Georgia Family History Expo just outside of Atlanta. It's November 11th and 12th. So if you are anywhere in that area, boy, this is my first time really getting out there a little further east, a little further south, and would love to see you. So come on by, and I'll be doing 3 classes there, and also, of course, we'll have a booth in the exhibit hall. And then, just announced, Roots Tech. Boy, was that a hit last year. If you didn't go, I'm sure you heard it was the place to be. So I know everybody is racing to get this on their calendars. Roots Tech is going to be February 2nd through the 4th. This is a 3-day event in 2012. And at Roots Tech this year, I'm going to be giving 3 presentations. I'll be doing how to create an exciting interactive family history tour with Google Earth. And I'm also going to be doing a brand new updated version of inspiring ways to capture the interest of the non-genealogist in your life. That one's going to be fun. Be sure and sit in on that one. And then I'll also be doing genealogy podcasts and blogs. Of course, got to talk about the techie issues, and this is going to be kind of a 101 class. You guys are all experts on podcasts, but if you want to just come and hang out and have fun. And we're also going to be talking about, of course, genealogy blogs and that kind of thing. So that's going to be fun. So those 3 are coming up. Be sure and stop by, because I will have a booth in that super cool exhibit hall. Was that not the coolest place on earth last year? It was amazing. I mean, it really looked like a high-tech conference, which, I mean, genealogy conferences are great, but if you've ever been to a really big high-tech one, like for Microsoft or Dell, I mean, they do some pretty amazing things. Boy, and RootsTech really gave it their all. So very fun. They had kind of the game center. They had the cyber cafe. They've got the media hub, and I'll be there. I'll have my booth there. So come by, say hi, and be sure and visit the show notes for this episode, because you can take a quick peek at a very short little video. It's about 1 minute long that will whet your appetite for RootsTech. Now, of course, at my Genealogy Gems YouTube channel, I have a whole series of videos I did last year. That's a great way to hear from some of the top speakers they had last year and just get a feel for what it's like there. But this little video in the show notes will show you what they're cooking up for this year in 2012. So to get to the show notes, go to my website, click podcast, and then navigate your way to episode number 118. And RootsTech is just the beginning of my speaking engagements in 2012. We are hitting the road even more next year, so I hope that one of those events fits into your busy schedule, because I sure would enjoy meeting you and seeing the smiling face of that person on the other end of the speakers. And I love hearing what you think about things, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to hear from you in the mailbox.
From my old hometown, one with some jokes from my old pal Jim Brown. Bring me a letter from that girl of mine, saying that she's longing for me all the time. Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
Well, as you'll remember, I had an interesting conversation with Dear Myrtle in episode number 117. It was about the abbreviation FL, and it showed up in a podcast listener. It was Dot. It was in her, I think it was a cousin's family history research, and she'd asked me about it. She was wondering what it stood for, and Dear Myrtle was intrigued as well. So she did a bit of investigation on it. We talked about it on the show. Well, several of you wrote in with your thoughts on the subject of FL. Sean writes, in episode number 117, your discussion of the abbreviation FL was very interesting. My first thought was that the abbreviation would stand for found living, and it sort of made sense based on the discussion. Finding this abbreviation in research could provide an important clue to narrow down when and where a person lived. However, after listening to the seminars at the recent FGS conference in Springfield, I'm more convinced to stick with my strategy of avoiding the majority of abbreviations in my own research notes. And that was definitely something that Mert and I agreed upon as well. I really have no way of knowing who'll be looking at my research after I'm gone, and I'll have no way to keep the glossary in the same place as my research results for the future researcher. Besides, that future researcher could be me when I find something that I wrote down many years before, and I might not remember what my intention was when I originally wrote it down. Thanks for continuing the interesting discussions and for keeping the excitement up in our research. Great point, Sean. That's true. That probably is the most common case, isn't it? We look at our own research 5 years later and go, what was I doing? Yeah, I know. We need to spell it out. And Dot chimed in. It was her email that originally spurred this conversation. She said that she had been talking with the cousin Rob who had found this originally, and she says, we do think that there is a time when it's handy for genealogists to use it. If you don't have birth and death dates, we think that instead of having nothing, FL gives you dates as a rough guide as to when the ancestor lived, and you can always extend the dates once more information is found. And just to wrap up, I was just laughing. I was doing a Google search, define floret, which is the word that it stands for, FL. And she says, and I came across a site that said floret is a great 7-letter Scrabble word. Anyone for a game of Scrabble? Thank you so much for your podcast. I love them. Your dear friend, Elder. Actually, do I admit this? I've been hooked on Scrabble. I'm playing the iPad version. I don't know if it's technically called Scrabble. Words with Friends, I think is what it's called. And I'm sure it's taken over the universe. Everybody's playing it. But I have like 7 games going at once. It's amazing I even get this podcast out. But you're right. Floret is a really good 7-letter Scrabble word. Now, Dave wrote in. He had a different opinion on the subject. He says, I'm a newly minted genealogist and I've been enjoying your show. I just finished listening to episode number 117 when you discussed the abbreviation FL for flourished or floret. I have seen this quite often, and although most of what you and Mert stated was technically correct, I don't think you accurately captured the meaning. You are correct that it is a term from history and not genealogy. It does refer to someone's productive time, but typically it refers to the time that someone is known to have practiced their profession. Usually it is used when no biographical information exists. I first ran across the abbreviation in studying early music, medieval and Renaissance. Composers were typically non-nobles and little is known about them. We don't know where they were born, how old they were when they composed, or when they died. Often there are simply no records, although occasionally something gets found. In fact, the only evidence we have of their very existence may be the corpus of work they left, often dated. So if we have pieces of music by this person from 1572 to 1584, we cite their dates, as in FL 1582-1584, without making any wild guesses about birth or death. Better to state what we know accurately than provide unsubstantiated guesses. In genealogy, it is less likely that this kind of sourcing is useful since the person is tied biologically to a time and a place. We know the age ranges for life events, so we can guess better. That said, it's very useful to be able to interpret information of this kind. Well, lots of great points there. Thank you all for chiming in. That was terrific. And it's always nice to hear when the gems that I talk about here on the show sparkle in your own research. Tina wrote in recently to share not one, but 2 examples of this. She says, I just wanted to thank you for putting the idea into my head that Paula Sassy might be able to contribute something to my knowledge about a relative. Now, as you can recall, Paula was recently a guest on the live podcast that we recorded at the Southern California Genealogical Jamboree in June of 2011. Well, she says, I wasn't sure if she would carry out the analysis, but she responded immediately. I'm afraid I dropped your name, having heard of her so many times on your podcast. And she said she did. Not only that, she sent her report the next day. I was a bit skeptical at first when I contacted her, but her report was worth every dollar. I gave her a bit of background to the handwriting I submitted, and she came back with insights and suggestions in areas that I hadn't mentioned, but nonetheless knew or suspected, all astonishingly accurate. I am just so grateful to her and to you. And can I give you another thank you? This is an old one, but still the most useful tip I think I have ever had. Go back and look at original documents again and again and again. Each time I do so, I seem to notice something I had missed the first few times, or now meant more because I had more information. Invaluable. Thank you. And that's from Tina. Oh, you're welcome, Tina. And you're absolutely right. That is one of my favorite tips too, because it just pays off. It's the gem that keeps giving, is it not? Go back. Look at things again, because we are always evolving in our understanding, our knowledge of our genealogy. And Paula Sassy, yes, you can find her. I think it's paulasassy.com. She's a certified handwriting analyst, and I will have a link. So if you want to get in touch with Paula, Tina's right. She did some for me, and they were amazing. And they actually did give me clues as to things I might be able to continue to look for. So really interesting stuff. It's just another tool in our tool belt, is it not? Next up, Thomas on Facebook asked, Lisa, I want to get your thoughts on using children's sidewalk chalk as a medium to be able to read gravestones better. The chalk is biodegradable as well as non-toxic. It washes off with just water as well. I know you've covered the topic in the podcast previously, but I don't recall that it was mentioned. I do know that we should do nothing permanent, but I don't believe that chalk is. Thoughts? Thomas, yes, I have some thoughts on this. Tombstone rubbing is a touchy subject, and there's absolutely no consensus on the matter out there. In fact, some people feel very passionately about this. Some people are against rubbing any substance on a tombstone, not because the chalk is going to hurt it, but because the rubbing can. Because each rubbing that's done reduces the clarity of the stone just a little bit, even by a fraction. Certainly, the chalk isn't going to harm it, but it's that application that could. So be careful first and foremost. Check with the local authorities at the cemetery to get permission if you decide to go forward. That's the first thing. My preference is to take multiple photographs and manipulate them with an editing program, which can allow you to alter the light, the contrast, the sharpness, and that can often reveal so much more that you just can't see with the naked eye. In fact, I did an article on this for Family Tree Magazine a few years back, and you can watch the companion video. It was called Grave Transformation. It's on their YouTube channel, and in fact, I'll go ahead and just put it in the show notes so that you can watch that. And that shows you how to use a basic free photo editing program, and you can get an awful lot done with reading tombstones. And the nice thing is, you're not touching it. We're not doing anything that could have a negative impact, and that's probably pretty important. And finally, now, being the genealogy Google guru has some challenges. It seems like as soon as I tell you about something that Google is doing, or I publish a tutorial video or an article, that Google goes and changes everything, like the Google News timeline, which bit the dust recently. I told you about that. Well, even iGoogle hasn't been immune to that constant change. And after some serious hair pulling, Pam wrote in asking for help. She says, "My iGoogle page has changed in the last week. The whole left side is different, but I can't remember what was there before. Is there any way that I can find out what was there before the new Add Gadgets section was put there? It is my homepage, and I look at it a lot, and it's bugging me to death. Nothing life-threatening, but just very uncomfortable. Kind of like when you replace an old comfortable chair. Things just don't seem quite right. Thanks for your help, Pam." Well, Pam, iGoogle does look a little bit different. I think that can depend a little bit on the browser that you use, but with Internet Explorer, really the main significant change that I see is that you're right, they've eliminated the Add Stuff link, which was up in the upper right-hand corner, and they've moved it over to the left as an Add Gadgets button. It's actually kind of nice because it's bright red and you can see it much easier than that little Add Stuff link. And it says Gadgets, which is actually more logical. So it's over on the left. It's up above where all the tab names were. Now, my guess is you're not seeing the tab names. And that's because there's a new feature there. It's retractable. So if you don't see the tab names, you're probably going to see a little arrow there that is right by the Add Gadgets button. And if you click it, it will reveal the tabs column. So if you have multiple layers of your iGoogle page, which I certainly do, they will all show up there, and then you can click the various tabs. I think what they're thinking is that the real estate space on your computer screen is really valuable. You want to see as much of the iGoogle page that you're working on as you can. So really, it isn't necessary to see all your tabs all the time when it takes up valuable space. So this way, the little arrow button is like a toggle switch and allows you to hide it so you get a little more space to work, and then you can click it again to reveal your tabs to go to another layer of your iGoogle page. And it's really interesting because although they keep making these changes, in reality, I think they are trying to make it better. And it does, but oh my gosh, it's like you can't run on autopilot anymore when something changes. And that's the hard part, is because I don't know about you, but I fail to budget for non-autopilot time. I keep adding new things because I have other things that I know how to do and I can do them really quickly. So anyway, this one I think is actually a good fix, and toggle it a little bit, click the Add Gadgets button, you'll get comfortable with it, and then you can set it aside and keep on iGoogling. Okay, well, I've got even more gems for you, so stay close to your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, your smartphone, your iPod, your MP3 player. Okay, you get my drift. Stay right there because I'm going to come back right after this.
Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I'll bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
Are you looking to take the next step in your family history research and start recording your family tree in your own genealogy database? Or are you looking to make a switch to a more user-friendly genealogy software program? When my listeners and students ask me which program I prefer, I always recommend RootsMagic. It's the program I decided to make the switch to a couple of years ago, and I am so glad I did. You just won't find a more powerful genealogy software program, and building your family tree is easier than ever with the new RootsMagic 4. With RootsMagic, you can add unlimited facts, find anyone in your database with lightning speed with RootsMagic Explorer, quickly and easily create perfectly formatted sources with the RootsMagic Source Wizard. It makes it so easy. You can create customized reports, and best of all, you can now take RootsMagic wherever your research takes you with RootsMagic to Go, which lets you run RootsMagic directly off your flash drive. And RootsMagic makes it a snap to share your family history. You know how important I think that is. It'll help you publish a book, create stunning wall charts, shareable CDs, even create websites automatically from your data. Really, what are you waiting for? Download your risk-free trial of RootsMagic 4 and see why professionals and beginners alike choose RootsMagic at rootsmagic.com. As you know, in addition to the Genealogy Gems podcast, I also produce and host the monthly Family Tree Magazine podcast for my friends at Family Tree Magazine. Well, throughout the month, I record the various segments and the interviews and everything. And then the last one that I just did before wrapping up the September 2011 episode was a segment with Allison Stacy. She's the publisher of Family Tree Magazine, and we talked about PERSI, which is part of Heritage Quest Online. Now, my guess is that you've probably heard of PERSI, but maybe it's been a long time since you checked it out, or maybe you've never gotten around to searching this incredible database. It's actually been ages for me too, so I really enjoyed chatting with Allison about it, and it reminded me what a gold mine it is. So in this gem, you're going to get a Family Tree Magazine gem, my conversation with Allison Stacy. In this month's episode, we've been talking about finding our ancestors in publications. And of course, books is one of the first things that we think about. But in this 101 Best Websites for Tracing Your Family History segment, we're going to talk about some other types of publications that are out there and a wonderful website where you can try to access them and be able to do further searching on your ancestors. To join me to talk about PERSI is Allison Stacy, publisher of Family Tree Magazine. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Lisa.
Well, PERSI is something that most of us at some point have heard about. It's part of the Heritage Quest Online website. But I think there's a lot of people out there who maybe just haven't tapped into it or haven't thought about it recently. And yet it's kind of a treasure trove of these alternative publications. Tell us what kinds of publications we're talking about that we might find in the PERSI Index.
Well, sure. I think you're absolutely right, Lisa, that it's one of those acronyms that gets thrown around a lot in the genealogy world, but sometimes people don't really fully understand the power of this tool and what it can do for them. So you mentioned books. Everyone knows to look for books about their family, somebody who's gone and done the genealogy. But a lot of times that information didn't get published in a book. It might have been published in a society newsletter or a journal. We've all heard of the National Genealogical Society Quarterly or the New England Historic and Genealogical Register. Those are the national types of journals. But lots of little societies, state and local ones, as well as other organizations, maybe family, surname associations, published newsletters and journals throughout the years, and they published a lot of this genealogy information too. So it's possible that the information that the research that someone else has already done has been published in an article, and PERSI will help you find it.
Yeah, I love that there's articles out there, and that seems daunting because it's like a needle in a haystack, but PERSI is trying to catalog this. And really, the engine behind all this indexing is the Allen County Public Library, right?
That's exactly right. So the Allen County Public Library in Indiana, they have one of the largest genealogy collections in the country after the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. And they're a huge repository for all of these genealogy publications. And for many, many, many years, their staff has been indexing the contents of all of these journals. And so that's essentially how PERSI came to be. It's the work of these staff members at the Allen County Library. And the great thing is that the Allen County Library actually has all of these articles that are referenced in PERSI. So when you look something up on Heritage Quest Online, you do your searching and you identify an article that's of interest to you. If your library doesn't have it and you aren't able to get it on interlibrary loan, you can actually send a request to the Allen County Public Library, and they will make a photocopy of the article for you for a small fee.
Wow, that's great. So that really broadens the available collections. Do you have some tips? Well, first of all, let's talk about how we access PERSI, because it isn't just hop onto a website and do your searching.
Right. That's, I think, the first trick to knowing how to use this is Heritage Quest Online is not a service that we as genealogists can just hop onto and access even, with a subscription. It's a service that libraries subscribe to. And so the first thing you have to do is find a library that subscribes to the service. And there's over 2,600 libraries who do. So, a call to your library's reference desk is usually what it takes. But the great thing is a lot of these libraries let you access it from home. So you can go to your library's website and log in from there. The example that I use is I belong to the Cincinnati Public Library, which is where Family Tree Magazine is based. And so as a card holder, I can go on to cincinnatilibrary.org and go to their databases page and find the genealogy section, and Heritage Quest is listed right there. When I click on the link, a box will pop up for me to enter my library card, and once I do that, I'm into Heritage Quest Online.
So you really can access from home. It's just you need to be kind of a card-carrying member of a library that subscribes to it. But then we can also access it at the library as well.
That's exactly right.
Perfect. So there's lots of searching to do. Now, we're not looking at digitized images, right? We're looking at an index. Do you have some search tips for us?
Yeah, that's the important thing to keep in mind right off the bat, is this isn't like searching the full text of all of the journals. You're searching an index, like you said. And it's kind of like when you would be using a head of household index to the census versus being able to search every name. You kind of have to adjust your search strategy a little bit. So when you're searching PERSI, what you're looking for is surnames, places, and topics, not all of the contents of the article. So, you have the option to search by surname or place. You can look for a how-to topic or a periodical title. And what I find is the more you kind of jam it with keywords, the less results that you get. So kind of keep your search simple.
That's a great tip. It's easy to do that.
Yeah, and another point is that you can use wildcards when you search PERSI, those being the asterisks that you would put to substitute for a letter or multiple letters at the end of a name in this particular case.
Oh, great. And then, so this is going to give us an indication if we get a hit. We're going to get a listing for an article or a publication, so we won't be seeing digitized pages, right?
Right. So actually, you'll get your list of hits on the term that you searched for, and then when you click on one of those, it's basically a citation for the article. Mm-hmm. You get a little bit of a description about the article, what periodical it was published in, the date it was published, and that's the information that you can take to either your library counter to do an interlibrary loan, or you can send to the Allen County Public Library to request the photocopy.
Perfect. So there's a little bit of legwork involved, but that's okay. That doesn't put us off any bit, because when you think of the vast amount of societies and over the years, all of the articles they might have published, oh my gosh, our ancestors must be in there somewhere.
Exactly.
It's certainly worth a look. And if you would like to learn more about PERSI, you can take a first step at going to your public library and asking if they do have a subscription to Heritage Quest Online. Once you find out, you probably will be accessing it through the library website versus the Heritage Quest Online website. But also, I think it's nice to get to know Allen County Public Library because, again, they are kind of the engine behind this whole project. And I've got a video for you. Allison was in Indiana a couple of years ago, and she did a tour of Allen County Public Library. I'm going to have a link to that video. Take a look because it's a great little introduction to what they've got going on there. Kurt Witcher is their director, and boy, they just are really such a powerful force, I think, in the area of genealogy research and providing collections and access to collections. It's very exciting. Allison, thank you for kind of reminding us about an old friend in PERSI and giving us some tips so we really know the steps to take to access these great articles.
You're welcome.
When I first started this podcast back in February of 2007, I made a list of all the gems I could think of that I wanted to talk about on the show. And I had quite a list, but after a few months, I started to get a little nervous that I would run out. Well, as it turned out, I was worrying for nothing because there's always something new around the corner. And now, of course, the big challenge is sifting through and picking out the most sparkly gems to tell you about. And one of the reasons I have so many great gems to choose from is you. So many of you out there listening join in and you help me by sending in gems that you unearth, which is one of the reasons why doing this podcast continues to be so rewarding. We can all pull together so we can all benefit from our collective wisdom, and you gotta love that. So a big hat tip to podcast listener Phil Rowley, who wrote in to share a gem that he spotted recently. He writes, I keep a regular eye on some of the best sites covering freeware, which of course is free software that people post on the web. And I've recently noticed another piece of transcription software with the advantage of being free, which is specifically aimed at transcribing data in tabular rather than freeform layout. The resulting data is then saved as a CSV file, which can be imported into a wide range of standard programs for further analysis, like Word or Excel. I wondered if this new update might be of interest to you and or your listeners, so I'm sending you the details. Well, this gem was indeed of great interest because a couple of years ago, I talked about a transcription program with genealogy blogger Denise Levinik that she uses. And to this day, I still get emails from folks asking, which episode was that on and what's the website address again for the program? Now, that episode was part of the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, my other series. It's episode number 39, still available on iTunes. And of course, you can get to it from my website. And the software program was called Transcript 2.3. It was 2.3 at the time. It's a free download, and it's available at Jacob, BOEREMA.NL. I think he's in the Netherlands. And I will have a complete link for you to that program in the show notes. So now we have a couple of great transcription programs to choose from, thanks to Phil. GenScriber is the one he's talking about. It's a desktop application designed for transcribing genealogy documents, again, from images of census registers or church or parish records. And it was designed to be really easy to use. The interface is made up of several resizable windows, and they're all within a single main window. A register image can be viewed in the top window, while your data is input in the bottom window. The beauty here, no installation is required. You just unzip the file from the website and you run it. There are versions for Linux and Windows, and again, it's free for personal and non-commercial use. So again, the difference between the two transcription programs is that Transcript is better for transcribing letters and journals because it's in that text page format. And GenScriber is ideal for transcribing the census, church records because it's in a tabular spreadsheet type format. Now, of course, sometimes using spreadsheets for genealogical data can cause trouble, but this is different because all the cell inputs are alphanumeric. So no assumptions are made by the program about the type of data that you're entering. Dates and values are exactly as you enter them. Dates, values, and special characters like slash, commas, and quotes, they can all be entered and they won't go haywire because of some formula that's in the background. GenScribe will always treat them as text input. However, if you want, you can use the extended options or built-in transcripting language to apply special actions to data cells, but even that's kind of limited and is only active if the user turns it on. And as Phil said, data files are always CSV format, which is great. They're fully transportable to any system, which is another great bonus. And GenScriber is also capable of reading other CSV files with field separators of comma, semicolon, or tab that you want to import into the program. Maybe you want to tweak them. And of course, the image files that you bring in that you want to transcribe, those can be JPEG, PNG, BMP, TIFF files, or GIF files. And those images can be zoomed and rotated, so it's real easy to see what you're looking at. So thanks again, Phil, for this great gem. Well, that's it for episode number 118 of the Genealogy Gems podcast. My special thanks to Alice and Stacy for allowing me to play a little gem that we did over on the Family Tree Magazine podcast here on the show. I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope you will definitely go check out the Family Tree Magazine podcast. We have a lot of fun putting that together, and I like it because we really get to do kind of a behind the scenes, kind of take it the next step with some of the authors of the articles for that magazine and, talk about some of the highlights. So you really get a lot of tips that you can use, which is what we're always looking for. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. You can leave a voicemail at 925-272-4021. We might play that on the show. I always would love to do that. And let's see. Oh, and I had mentioned all the dates that are coming up that I'll be speaking around the country and in Canada. I will have those listed in the show notes as well, so you can check those out. Would love to see you on the road somewhere. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.